All right, Beers with Chad, number 3. We're here in Canberra, Australia, middle of the night for our American friends. So I don't really know what the viewership is going to be like tonight. We're at Burley Strength, owned by my good friend John Sheridan, Shero, and possibly the frustrated strength coach, Thomas, don't call him Tom, Lilliey. What is the beer that we're drinking this evening?
We're drinking the Evil Eye Red IPA from the Capital Brewing Company, which, as we've just returned from their brewery, which is conveniently positioned just around the corner from my gym. Which I'm not saying was...
I think a strong selling point. Strong selling point for Burley Strength.
That and the rest of the establishments on this street.
Yeah. Pretty girls, husky girls, what were the other...
The Capital Men's Club. There's a few others. The Lollipop Lounge.
Yeah, Tent World.
Tent World, yeah, which you really want to be a brothel, but it isn't.
I think Tent World would be a great name for a strip club.
I think it would be.
Yeah.
They missed an opportunity there. Camping store by day, strip club by night.
So, what I want to talk to these guys about tonight is a little bit about Australian powerlifting culture. And it's my 5th trip to Australia in the last 3.5 years, going on 4 years. And there's a reason I keep coming back. We have great powerlifting meets here, great, community of powerlifting, and I think what you guys do a lot better than the U.S. is a much more kind of unified front towards powerlifting. Plus, some of the best powerlifting gyms I've ever been to. From an equipment standpoint, I mean, we could, I suppose, do a little Burley tour, but you've got 2 monos, 3 monos, 4 more power racks, 4 competition benches, 3 deadlift platforms, maybe 4 deadlift platforms, and there's probably been at 10 different gyms. Thomas owns PTC Gold Coast, which is similarly equipped. Was at Valhalla Strength earlier. 4 or 5 monoliths there, 5 or 6 competition benches, 8 deadlift platforms, PTC headquarters. So fantastic gyms here. And I think just a very fast growing and influential part of powerlifting. So it's just to lead off, what do you guys think makes Australian powerlifting special in the world powerlifting scheme of things?
I think Thomas is probably better equipped to answer that question because I've never done anything powerlifting related outside of Australia. So I feel like I've lived in a little bit of a bubble because I've only ever experienced it in Australia. I know you've done a lot more traveling for powerlifting than I have, so you're probably better equipped to answer that question. And
before Thomas talks, I'll toot his horn for him, figuratively, not literally.
That'd be a much better video, though. The viewership would go straight through the roof. Right time of night in America.
That you're the king coach in Australian powerlifting. I mean, you coach pretty much all of Australia's best powerlifters. Yes.
I've coached a lot of lifters in the last few years. Yeah.
I know you know the numbers. So let's fire them off here. Give me some numbers on people.
As in numbers that people have hit.
How many 300 kilo squatters have you had?
Over 40.
Over 40. How many? I mean, we know Australia sucks at benching, so over 200 kilo benches?
Over 500 pound benches, I've had 14.
All right, so that's a 227 kilo for our American friends watching. Or no, switch it other way.
Smooth.
How about 320 deadlift?
Oh, 320.
Or 300 kilo deadlift.
Over 300 is around 45.
45, 300 kilo deadlifters. Very, very strong. And you're coaching people in the GPC and the PA. But yeah, so back to the answer. What makes Australian powerlifting special?
Yeah, I think, what you started talking about, the community side of things. I think we have a really close-knit community here, and I think that comes a lot from the fact that the popularity of powerlifting is still quite young. Like you say, we're still growing, and everyone's kind of loving powerlifting and happy and friendly. I think Australians as a culture are pretty laid back as well.
You're known for that.
Yeah. So Well, some people are very fiercely competitive. I think even the fiercely competitive ones are still pretty laid back, still pretty chill, and it makes for happiness in the community, I guess.
I think we're relatively fortunate to only really have two major powerlifting federations.
Yeah, this is what I think is the really big difference.
Yeah.
So Australia has the GPC, so untested powerlifting, monolift knee wraps,
Specialty bars.
squat bars, deadlift bars, and then maybe
The other one.
Yeah, then tested powerlifting, which was Powerlifting Australia for a long time. If you follow along with powerlifting on the internet, Reddit and whatnot, I'm sure you're aware that Powerlifting Australia and their czar, what's his proper title?
I think it's probably technically president.
Yeah, okay. The president of the PA, Powerlifting Australia, Robert Wilkes, of the Wilkes formula, was removed by the IPF, and so now tested powerlifting and the IPF affiliate for Australia is in a bit of limbo. But either way, for the last several years, GPC, PA, very simple, like, all right, you want to do untested, you want to do monolift and wraps, you go here. You don't, you go here. As opposed to the US where, you know, though the USAPL, USPA, RPS to a lesser degree have kind of risen to the top, there are an excess of options for lifters.
Yeah, and I definitely think that definitely makes a difference, and I think that divide is actually, like, the divide between the two in some instances, and I think probably the vocal minority, is quite vicious. There are, you know, people who are vehemently on one side of that line and the other, but if you look at the broad picture of things, I think actually everyone, the vast majority, understand that we're all just lifting weights, and it's just how you choose to express that lifting of weights. You know, in the end, it's up to you, and everyone just understands. Like, I have good friends that compete in Powerlifting Australia. I coach people that compete there. I have people that train here, but at the same time, everyone just knows, like, it's just powerlifting. Like, it doesn't have to be quite so militant in how we support it.
I want to come back to part of that, like association rule type of stuff in a bit.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, but with the GPC being, you know, the dominant untested fed, you have states and you have nationals, and as opposed to state championships and national championships in U.S. federations, save the USAPL, they're in the U.S. for the most part, those are just another meet. You know, and I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was USPA, SPF, and APF or WPC or fucking some letters, you know, all had their national championships on the same weekend. And once you get down into all the subdivisions and, you know, left-handed fireman division and whatnot, you had probably 2,000 national champions crowned in one weekend. But with the structure of Australian powerlifting, GPC nationals are like real fucking nationals. Everyone who's a top lifter in the GPC goes to that, correct?
We also don't use age classes in open competition, so all of GPC's competition is done as open competition.
That's fantastic.
So we have a teen juniors masters nationals that is a separate competition altogether. Our open nationals is open, so there's no age categories, there's none of that. It's all just weight classes, it's highest total wins.
And then overall.
Yeah, and then overall they take the winner of each weight class and compare them with formulas.
America, are you listening? I know it's 3 a.m. there, but that's how it's supposed to be. Just open. You don't need fucking the worst one is sub-masters.
What is that?
It's like your
like 32
open
to
lifter who's
37.
a bit shit, but can't compete in the opens, and
Exactly.
so wants to hide somewhere else.
Yeah. The sub-masters, that's gotta go. Yeah.
What is it, like 35 to 40 or something?
It's
like
probably
that?
35 to 39, I guess, yeah. In like the prime strength.
Yeah, like
years,
where most powerlifting records are set. You get your
Yeah.
own division.
Yeah. What about the states situation?
Yeah, I think the landscape's slowly changing, especially with the advent of pro raw being so big now. Pro raw what's kind of pulling out a lot of the really big lifters, and they're kind of focusing on that. And then you've got your big dogs as well, which a few more lifters are kind of pulling out of the nationals, which was the huge thing like 2 years ago, and aiming towards these other competitions as well. States is always fun, always exciting, always huge.
It does depend on where you go. So like Queensland states, like obviously it's a population-based thing, right? We're in Canberra, which is a territory unto itself. So I hosted the ACT state. We had like 25 lifters or something last weekend before. We have a population of 300,000, or maybe 350,000 in the ACT. Queensland has several million, and they have a 3-day long states that
Sold out in like 20 minutes.
sells out within the hour of going on sale. So it definitely depends on where you go. Queensland and Victoria are the dominant forces, I think, in GPC especially. New South Wales to a lesser extent, and then the rest are a little bit more small and scattered. WA, like all credit's got to go to the Rucci boys there. They have done a spectacular job of. They've got a 3-day states. I think they've got 160 lifters or something
70,
insane.
Yeah, I went to Perth, WA, Western Australia. If you're
Basically
familiar,
a separate country.
yeah, if you're familiar at all with Australian geography, we've got kind of Melbourne down here, Canberra, Sydney, Brisbane, and then over here, I mean, how long is a flight Sydney
It's
to?
like 5.5 hours.
5.5, 6 hours.
Sydney to Perth.
And it's 3 time zones.
So comparable a flight from like Miami to Los Angeles. You get over there to Western Australia with not a lot in between.
Well, it depends on what you define as a lot. There's a lot of desert.
There's a big rock.
Yeah, a really big rock. I think the world's longest straight road runs that way.
Kangaroos, camels.
Yeah, lots of camels.
Huh.
Yeah.
Lots of camels.
A shitload of stuff that can probably kill you.
Camels, I don't know.
There's probably like a special Australian camel spits venom or something. Everything that can kill you lives in Australia.
We did have a bad wasp infestation out the back of the gym the other day. Benny opened it up by dropping a stone onto our loading platform and then got chased away by wasps, like a swarm of 100 wasps.
Yeah, I've seen the Discovery Channel. I know that everything that can kill you lives here. But yeah, Perth is way out there kind of on its own. But the most phenomenal gym, the PTC Perth, from an equipment standpoint, I mean, just incredibly well done. So we have the state stuff and you know, great competition in GPC. Want to come back and talk about Pro Raw and how, you guys have seen that stuff grow in your time here. But first, let's get into a little bit of GPC versus PA, I suppose. But the culture of and not to get anyone in trouble as gym owners and business proprietors here, but people take a lot of heat for lifting in PA and training at a non-PA gym. And the only understanding that most of the people would have of this would be like, if you go to an Ed Cohen seminar, you're going to get, lifetime ban, haha thing. But that happens out here, or at least it's threatened.
It's certainly threatened.
To happen.
I think the threatening is the big thing. There have been many instances of pretty heavy threats, which I think will probably die down with the change in the landscape now. But previous to that, it was really just about understanding the rules, and giving people confidence in the rules and the fact that the association laws don't actually belong to PA, but they belong to WADA, and they're set in stone. They're very clear and easy to understand. So I know I preached a lot about what these rules are and what they mean and trying to get people to understand, but you're 100% right. People that don't align with a Powerlifting Australia club or didn't align with a Powerlifting Australia club were kind of at risk of copying some flack, depending who they are.
Yeah,
depending on the level of the lifter and who they know and where they're competing.
I've had some fairly, reasonably high level Powerlifting Australia lifters get a phone call or two when they register that this is the gym that they train at, and often the response to that phone call depends on who the person is. Because if it's a particularly strong-willed person who understands the rules, and I go full disclosure with all my athletes, you compete where you want. I have no role in that choice. I will give you your options. You choose that, but understand that if this is the option you choose, this is what you can expect to happen. They can't do anything about it. None of it means anything, but just be prepared for that. And some people aren't prepared for that. I've had people in my office in tears because they got a phone call that essentially threatened them with everything up to, we'll ban you for training there, which is, like Tom said,
There's no rule to say.
Yeah, it's absolutely rubbish.
I mean, I myself have been victim of, association rule discrimination in, the infamous sports shoe debacle of 2017.
I'm surprised there isn't a movie about it yet.
In which, as many of you may recall, I was in the back room getting ready to coach Marissa at IPF World Championships when I was approached by an official and told that I needed to leave the back room because of two things that they cited. One, my lack of proper sport shoes, and two, my association with the GPC, which really narrowed down the suspects of who may have complained about this to me, but
I don't know. Could have been a number of people. Could have been John. Could have been frustrated strength coach.
yeah, well, it could always be frustrated strength coach. He's everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. And then, famously replied to them that I was wearing sports shoes.
Famously. Self-proclaimed famously.
Yeah, you knew about it though.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Only because you told me.
And told them that I was wearing sports shoes, Olympic sports shoes for the Olympic sport of sailing, and not for the recreational hobby of powerlifting, which I didn't phrase it quite that way, but
For the record, were you associated with GPC in any way, shape, or form?
no, I'd done the GPA Worlds in 2014.
Which is also not GPC.
Yeah.
A totally different letter in there.
Oh, I thought it was maybe the world affiliate of it or something.
No, it's
No,
two different
GPA is
federations.
Oh,
different
okay.
federation.
GPC is GPC Worlds,
Yeah.
and GPA is GPA. It's two separate
It's
federations.
an alliance and a committee, obviously.
Okay.
Don't you know anything about powerlifting, Chad? Fuck.
It's not
Amateurs.
It's not the global powerlifting axis.
That would be much better.
Yeah.
That would be such a better name for a federation.
But no, I'd done Pro Raw, which is no federation.
Yeah.
Which is, side note about that, when there's 50 fucking federations, 50, sanctioning, governing bodies, there's zero. Right? None of them do anything. Someone just decided, well, I'm going to make my own. But it's not like, it's not real. So saying that you did an unsanctioned meet or something like that, it doesn't fucking matter. Did people watch it and say, well, this squat was good? Oh, then it's good. But Pro Raw is this weekend at the Arnold Australia. What is Pro Raw?
So Pro Raw is its own competition, its own federation. It started off as an invite-only competition for the best of the best in Australia to showcase.
Which is funny because I went to the first one and I'm not the best.
Maybe you were then, Sheridan.
No, still very average.
So it's kind of grown and evolved. I can't speak for before Pro Raw 5. That was my first involvement in Pro Raw. And Pro Raw 5 was the first one that had international lifters. That was when Dan Green and Lilliey came out to that
Yeah,
one.
that's right.
And we're on Pro Raw 10
We're on
is this
Pro Raw
weekend.
10, yeah.
PRX.
PRX,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I competed at Pro Raw 1 and Marcus started it. His thing was that like powerlifting is very diluted and he wanted to make it more competitive and make it a slightly bigger, I think, spectacle. And obviously, I'm putting words into his mouth here, but to do that, he reduced the number of weight classes down. So in the men, there's only 4 weight classes, 80, 95, 110. Now there's a 125 and a supers.
Yep.
But at that point, it was 110 plus. So it was 4 weight classes, no formulas, all just total direct competition. Like it was meant to actually make powerlifting a competitive sport again. And the first one, like I remember hearing about the first one on now I think defunct bodybuilding forum, which is where a lot of the PTC things started.
AusBB.
Yeah, AusBB, the Oz Bodybuilding Forum, because obviously bodybuilding.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point, like it was going to be this great new thing that was going to inspire all these people, and I got absolutely slaughtered by Gawain, who's competing this weekend. Is he competing this weekend? No, he's doing big dogs. But it was a thing that I think started as one thing and it has morphed into something different now.
You know, it's even 5 years ago they were offering pretty decent prize money, which no one else was doing. And in Australia, I'm pretty sure there's no other competitions that offer any sort of prize money. If they do, it's nowhere near.
Yeah, like it's a few $100s. Wasn't there is it Matty Tiki, the PA comp?
The PA
But they didn't offer prize money. You got opals. You win Matty Tiki and you got an opal. I think they
Like
had.
a gemstone?
Yeah.
Precious
Okay.
stone.
Yeah.
Very precious.
Yeah, linked closely together, powerlifting and gemstones.
So now the prize pool's up to, I think, around $40,000. There's some big sponsors on board. And yeah, it's huge. This one's going to be the biggest one by a long shot.
Yeah, I went last year and it was crazy. Like, I think,
It's in the Australian Arnold class.
yeah, like interestingly, it happens at the Arnold's. I would be very interested to see how many of those people would go and watch a standalone competition.
Yeah, so I competed at the Pro Raw 8, so Pro Raw 7 and 8, but 8, which was the first time that it was at the
Yeah,
Arnold.
that was the first Arnold's, yeah.
And it was like the biggest thing at the Arnold.
It has been every year that I've been at the Arnold's.
And compared to that year, the space they give it is, what, 4 or 5 times more?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the year after Pro Raw 9 was probably, I don't know, triple the size.
And it's like double again.
And it's double again.
Yeah.
And triple the size, and on the bigger days, it was busting at the seams.
Yeah, like on the Saturday especially, it just there's people standing on chairs. You can't see anything because there's thousands of people there. It's a spectacle, man. Like I still think it's the biggest comp in Australia in terms of the number of people that actually watch it. I think a lot of that's the location. Like if that was a standalone meet, I don't know that you'd get a lot of those casual observers
Yeah.
that are not necessarily powerlifting fans, but they're there for strength sports and bodybuilding and all that sort of stuff, and they'll watch that. But
Yeah. Well, it's, at the American Arnold, Marissa competed at the
they had
Grand...
like 3 different powerlifting comps in that.
at 5, really, at 6,
Six
actually.
if you count the other one.
Yeah. But the Grand Prix, the biggest one, which is on the stage in the main expo, and you would have to go, you guys would have to go to the American Arnold to really appreciate how big it is.
Yeah, I've heard
it's-
lots of
Was
stories.
that
You've
last
been,
year?
haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that was amazing.
Yeah, it's happening, it's got 6, 7 different halls that it's happening in.
Yeah.
So it's just out of control. But her meet, the Grand Prix, which is on the stage in the main expo hall, there's a ton of people watching. I mean, probably 1,000 chairs set up, all full, and then another 1,000 people standing around. But they're there to watch, a 2-flight meet, 16 lifters, and it's done in 2.5 hours. This is 3 days, full days of lifting, full sessions. So it's a different experience for sure, and a really cool one. And when I look at Pro Raw and the way that it's structured, what they've done, what he's done a great job of is making this much more competitive, head-to-head competition, which is lost so much in the submasters and all the different divisions that American powerlifting has. And I think it could have the ability to create something like a Pro Raw league for powerlifting per se.
Which I think has always been Marcus's intention.
Yeah.
To make it like it's meant to be the pinnacle, sort of, the best of the best go there. How well that ends up working out when you've only got 1 meet a year does make it a lot harder.
Yeah, what I could see is adding, 2 more meets, 2 more Pro Raw meets. So you basically have Pro Raw, like a regional meet. Let's say you split the world into 4 regions, and each one had a Pro Raw in about March. And you had a qualifying total to go to that, and then they take, top 2 or 4 or whatever from each meet, and they went to semifinals. One in the U.S. and one in Europe, or one in the U.S. and one in Australia. And then you took the top 6 from each of those
Like
semifinals.
a world champion.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
and then you had the Pro Raw World Championships with a bunch of money, a shitload of money. I think doing the way that they have the weight classes set up, different weight classes, that can be a cool thing for it. The 2-hour weigh-ins that they do is good, but it could have the potential, with the right organization and everything to create truly professional powerlifting.
Yeah, which is, I think, has always been Marcus's goal.
Yeah.
Like Marcus talks a lot about the fact that powerlifting should be essentially a professional sport, because no one I've ever met has made a living like professionally out of lifting weights.
Yeah, I mean, even if I guess if someone went and won US Open in the spring and Big Dogs in the fall, they could definitely live off of that. Yeah, you'd think that'd be $70,000 of prize money right there. I mean, that's certainly livable.
Yep. That's a hard ass to do every year, though.
Yeah, that would be.
Like, to do it once would be super impressive, but to do it in a way that allows you to make a living from it, that's a whole nother ball game.
I think some of those Russian guys off of the Super Cup of Titans were living off of that. Granted, a different cost of living there. As far as I know, Belyaev was just winning powerlifting meets, and that's how he was feeding his family.
And I think it's a totally different ballgame when you look at Russia and the Eastern Bloc and stuff like that, for sure.
Mafia, money laundering, and whatnot.
Alleged.
So
Chad turns up dead. Wasn't us.
Yeah. What's one thing that the rest of the powerlifting world needs to, what they should know about Australian powerlifting, what you guys do great, and what you're really proud of?
I think the quality, having been to a lot of competitions around the world, the quality of the organization and even the quality of equipment makes a big difference. Makes a really big difference. I think for me, that's always the standout compared to international meets that I've been to otherwise.
Yeah,
There's that real attention to detail in that sense.
Yeah, being at Big Dogs or at Pro Raw and having the exact same monoliths and the exact same bars in the back room as you do on the platform.
Calibrated plates and
designated loaders. Yeah, the live stream playing in the back, the scoreboard that you can see in the back, so you're not having to peek around the corner and see how many lifters out you are. That stuff is very nice.
Yeah, I think again, I can't really speak too much to the rest of the world because I've never really traveled outside of Australia for powerlifting. I think that the attention to detail in terms of the equipment, the way the meets are run, those sort of things is definitely going to be hard to beat in what I've seen for the rest of the powerlifting that I watch.
So same answer as Thomas. Real
basically, pretty much. I think powerlifting in Australia though has come a very long way. Like the first nationals I did, I competed deepest darkest multiply.
And I'm still friends with them. People think that I hate multiply.
I had someone recently accuse me of hating multiply lifting. Because apparently when you hate something, you should spend 5 or 6 years being reasonably good at it just to prove you hate it. But I think like the first nationals I competed at was not a GPC nationals. It was Capo, and it was in a RSL, like a return service league club. So it's all ex-army guys and cheap beer.
Like a VFW would be the American equivalent, probably.
I don't know what that is, but sure.
Yeah.
And there was one monolith. It was on the platform. I had to warm up, and at that point, like I was squatting multiply with a very wide stance. Like I couldn't walk my squats out, so I had to warm my squats up.
Not with that kind of attitude.
No, exactly. It was mostly an attitude problem, and I had to warm my squats up in a pair of squat stands where the base plates of the squat stands were too wide for my stance, and so I had to set up, have 2 people remove the squat stands.
That's how the monolith was born, Fred Hatfield.
And then had to step my squat out to the right stance to be able to do my warm-ups like that. And now you go to GPC Nationals, in order, like a bare minimum equipment to host a GPC Nationals, you have to have 3 monoliths in the warm-up room, you have to have 3 comp benches, 3 platforms, like specialty bars for all of them, and enough plates to cover it all. Like that's bare minimum to be considered to host it. Not even like, oh yeah, okay, you can host it. This is like to put in a bid. If you don't have that, you won't be considered.
Australian lifter to watch that American fans might not know.
That's a good question. You all know Liz Craven. think up and coming, there's a guy in Perth, Dylan Hellriegel. You guys heard of him?
Never heard of him.
He's a kid. He's like 21, and he's squatting over 350, deadlifting over 350. Pro Raw is his first showing, like big showing, and I think he's going to be one to watch for sure.
Super or?
He's a super, yeah. He's a big boy. He's like 6'4" and 160 kilos and lean.
Well, I mean, most supers are.
Yeah.
PTC Perth, Muscle Pit, where's he?
He's a muscle pit guy. Yeah, he's from out there. I think Alex Deacon is going to go a long way if he sticks with it.
Well, fantastic coach.
Yeah.
Really good looking. His coach, that is Alex is whatever, I guess.
What do you go? 847 at 90?
Yes. Like the record, or the guy got second at that meet was 8:45. So I think they both broke the Australian record. This is the lifter that I coach. Alex Deacon is the.
In case you didn't pick up on those subtle hints.
Yeah. Well, who's the Australian national record holder in the 198s, 90 kilo class? Who's your pick, Cheryl?
I don't really have an answer for this question. I would like to say that I follow people at that level more closely than I do, but I don't really. I think Deeks is crazy strong. I think Pat Morrison, if he keeps his head in the game, can do very big things.
Yeah. Will Crozier as well.
Yeah, I think
he's amazing.
Will Crosby's got the biggest traps in the world.
He does. His neck is oddly large.
Yeah, like it starts from about the
Yeah.
top third of his ear and goes down from there. I think he's an absolute monster. I think he's the man to beat in the 110s.
And such a humble and
Yeah,
well presented lifter.
Yeah, and that's the big thing for me is I think that as a whole, Australian powerlifters and I think most powerlifters, or at least most of the people I've met, are relatively humble people who, people like yourself, people like Marissa, people like Ed, who are the best of the best, but still very, very humble in what they do. I think for me, that's what is like a true professional, so to speak. They might not make a living doing it, but to be the person that will happily speak to anyone about powerlifting that doesn't think they're the shit just because you're like.
Because they can lift pieces of metal attached to another piece
See,
of metal.
that's the thing, right? Is it always comes back to this idea that actually, in reality, no one really cares about powerlifting other than powerlifters. And so just because you're a very strong powerlifter doesn't make you the be-all and end-all. And I think the people that express that, people like Will, for me, they're the powerlifters I care about because they're the ones that, like, I like talking to Will. Will's a nice guy.
Yeah, I like Will. He's a good
And
guy.
it turns out Will and I trained in the same gym, like, way back in the day at Power Sports. That sign that's over there. That was, like, apparently I gave him some tips on how to do a glute hammer. So him, Matt Stenzel are the two guys I just...
Yeah, well, now that you're dropping names, he trains at my gym, so.
Oh.
And you're his coach.
Yeah, you are the king of Australian powerlifting coaches. I introduced you as that. So this is Thomas Lilliey at TomBro7.
Hey, you got it.
John Sheridan at JustShero
2 hours.
with 2 R's. And yeah, this was Beers with Chad, number 3 from Australia, live from Australia. Cheers, you sick fucking cunts.
Thomas,
That's a compliment in Australia, by the way. I've been holding in my good Australian terms. Sick fucking cunt.